After being painted blue, a little cat was left behind. It was utterly alone in the world, desperate and helpless. However, a ray of hope appeared when a good Samaritan discovered her. In the Brazilian suburb of Manaus, a terrified kitten was struggling to survive. Cruel humans had covered her with blue oil-based paint, the kind used to paint the outside of buildings. It may have been because of a disgusting game of sorts, or perhaps they did it for a more malicious motive. Regardless of their intentions, they just left her to her own devices when they finished having fun. She watched them run down the road and disappear into the distance, and with them, ironically, went her only hope for survival. The kitten was too young to take care of herself, and she was in severe physical distress. Her skin was on fire. The evaporating chemicals in the paint made it exceedingly difficult for her to breathe correctly, and the coating of paint on her fur made it hard for her body to regulate her temperature adequately. She was rapidly overheating, which may kill the kitten within 1 hour. Her eyes darted back and forth in fear and anxiety as she searched for a cool, safe spot to hide and reassemble. Agitated and profoundly disturbed by the event, she crawled into a stormwater drainage ditch under an overpass. There she snuggled up and attempted to make sense of the universe. The kitten was now destined to either slowly starve to death or perish from exposure to the Amazon rainforest's unrelenting equatorial heat. Perhaps she was aware of that instinctively. Simultaneously, electrical engineer and Brazilian activist Amari Gomez left his home for his daily jog. This particular Wednesday, he jogged a different route on a whim. He believed he heard a little animal's screams as he got closer to the overpass, but he couldn't tell what it was since he was too far away. On the outskirts of the rainforest, wild animals of all kinds frequently wandered into human neighborhoods. Amari then moved cautiously closer. When he came to the bridge, he started making his way through the thick underbrush, following the whimpering noises. Amari discovered the cat, smeared in dried blue paint and muck, just inside the stormwater drain entrance. She could hardly raise her head to gaze at him because it was too weak. She was clearly distressed. Amari carefully removed the kitty from her hiding spot after removing his shirt and putting it over his hand. He could see that she was rapidly losing the will to defend herself. She struggled to moisten her dry, paint-covered lips as the tiny body lay lifeless in his hand and her breath was shallow. Amari realized that the cat was extremely thirsty and overheated, and she realized how serious the situation was. He rushed home to assist her, abandoning his run. On the way, he silently vowed to attempting all in his power to save the cat. He even named her before he reached his residence, naming her Blue. He ran lukewarm water into his bathtub at home after filling a saucer with milk and another with fresh water. But neither piqued Blue's curiosity. She repeatedly flopped onto her side because she was too weak to stand. Amari quietly acknowledged the slim chances of her survival, but remained determined to save her. She tried to wrap her small body into a ball out of reflex when he carefully dropped her into the bathtub's lukewarm water. He moistened her whole body, hoping to remove some of the paint. By this point, the majority of it had dried, making it even more difficult for Blue to move. Her skin seemed to have turned into a hard, leathery crust all over. Blue appeared to chill down a bit, even though the water was only lukewarm. She began to show hints of life and even made an effort to thwart Amari's attempts to assist her. He placed a towel around her and went into the kitchen to put on some rubber gloves. In search of a cleaning solution for Blue's skin, he unlocked a cabinet in the kitchen. The only items on the shelf were a bottle of paint thinners and caustic solvents. In the end, he grabbed a bottle of dishwashing liquid and rushed back to Blue in the restroom. Her health remained serious. When he took her up, her little heart was pounding like a drum, her stress levels were through the sky, and her breathing was more labored than it had ever been. Once more, he eased her gently into the water. He lathered her fur with the dishwashing soap and massaged it carefully to remove the paint. Blue resisted him all the way out of instinct, And because she was still frightened by what had happened earlier in the day, she attempted to hiss and scrape, but each time she forced air out of her lungs, she began to cough. Amari was afraid she could completely cease breathing when she did that. He'd barely scraped off a little of the paint by now, but he knew he'd have to wait till she had had time to relax and recover before attempting again. In an attempt to calm her, he dried her and made a little nest of towels on his bed. It was a long time before Blue finally slept off. Her wheeze persisted even after her breathing calmed. As he put his palm on her little rib cage, he could feel the rhythm of her heartbeat become more consistent. She was still moving quickly, but it seemed like she was a lot calmer kitty now. She poked her head out from behind her towels 2 hours later. She was obviously disoriented and unaware of her surroundings. After leaving her on the bed, Amari went to get the milk and water he had previously poured for her. She began to lap at the water, much to his relief. Still, a persistent coating of blue paint stuck to her. Amari was concerned about this. Not by any means was she out of the woods yet. Blue would probably swallow the toxic chemicals and solvents in the paint on her skin and fur if she began grooming herself out of instinct. This may be lethal, particularly given her compromised state. Besides, Blue's self-grooming may have another deadly result because of the patches of solidified paint on her fur. In the event that she produced and ingested a hairball, likely due to the way the paint had matted her fur, the chemicals in the paint may cause nausea and vomiting. In addition to causing her further grief, this may result in long-term health problems based on what Amari knew. Blue's respiratory system has already been affected by the fumes. Her coughing episodes still worried him, even though her breathing was considerably better than it had been. He prayed in private that the paint's volatile organic chemicals wouldn't harm her little lungs and airways irreversibly. He tried to soothe Blue in her towel nest again, deciding to deal with the leftover paint the next day. After a while, the kitten's fatigue eventually won out. She soon fell into a sound sleep. For Amari, not so. In order to keep an eye on her as she slept, prevent her from grooming, and try to provide her with food in the event that she woke up, he made the decision to keep a night watch. Although she was already improving, he realized in silence the enormous amount of work that still needed to be done to stabilize Blue and preserve her life. Amari developed this regimen over the course of the following few days. Blue had to take a warm bath every day to remove additional paint, which was a laborious procedure. He estimated that, at this rate, it would take more than a week to entirely get rid of the paint. During this period, Blue remained at risk of accidentally swallowing chemicals or getting severe skin irritation from the dried paint. She rested in a basket at his feet while he worked at his desk. He stood up as she did. He followed her around like a mother hen, made sure she had food and water at all times, and stopped her when she began to lick herself. When Blue began eating well on day 2, Amari realized for the first time that her odds of surviving were improving. By the end of the 7th day, Blue had changed completely. He had rescued a little, scared and gaunt little kitten from an exposed stormwater drain, and it had recovered. When she realized she could trust him, her confidence began to grow daily. Most importantly, throughout the last week, all traces of the poisonous paint had been cleansed off her skin and fur. On the night of day 7, Blue hopped onto Amari's bed out of the blue and curled up at his feet. At that moment, he was certain that the fight to preserve her life had been won. What a tale, and what a man, for making such a hopeless circumstance into a triumph. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below if it affected you as much as it did me.